Many people compare Charles Bukowski and Angus Vieira. They're both poets. They both have written novels. They both love women. They both love bars. However, Angus has never tried to be like anybody else, and no one could be like Angus. This clip will show some of the differences between these two bar men.
Angus Vieira, well-known ethical slut, and I am among other things, a poet and writer of mystery novels, mystery noir, I call it. I was a young, beer-swilling, fast, cheap car driving juvenile delinquent when I was 18. I just barely graduated from high school east of Lake Washington in what is now sort of Microsoft country. And so after I went through high school, naturally I threw a 3-month party that ended with the police arresting me and saying I was looking at 6 months in jail, or I could be redirected into a life of public service because they needed lots of warm bodies to go and fight in Vietnam. And I chose that. And turned out all right since I lived through it. Got a taste for world travel, Oriental girls, and just a little more adventurous life than I was going to get just being a landlubber here in the United States. But I've always, wherever I've gone and whatever I've done, I've always written at least poetry. Poetry, books, always read. A lot of reading chances because the way I got around the world was I became a merchant marine on all kinds of vessels, like scientific research vessels, container ships, tankers, etc., etc. And while I was sailing, I was writing. And now I'm trying to sell a few books.
Do you think that psychedelic drugs can be a way of opening to spiritual truth?
Oh, sure, certainly. When I got out of the Marines, I was I was very angry. 2 tours in Vietnam as a helicopter medevac and resupply chopper machine gunner. I was really sick of war and sick of that stupid war, for one thing. So I was probably headed for being a drunk. But some friends of mine from my youth, an old girlfriend who was now married and had a baby, they had discovered LSD. This was in 1969, 1970. And they didn't like the fact that I was coming over to their place where they were tripping and getting drunk and passing out while they were tripping their brains out on acid. And I ended up trying it and really liking it. As a matter of fact, both of these pictures were done by me on 2 different acid trips. I called them my acid dragon. And I ended up combining them in the 2-headed dragon that's on my back right now. Big 2-headed dragon, because As a May Gemini, I think I've got one set of wings, but two different points of view, two different heads, as it were. One of my first favorite poems when I was a kid was Kipling. Something I owe to the soil that grew, more to the life that fed, but most of all to Allah, who gave me two separate sides to my head. I would go without shirts or shoes, friends, tobacco, or bread, sooner than for an instant lose either side of my head. Two different points of view, two different ways of looking at the world, but only one life to live. If I'm going to get anything done, I have to get the two to at least work together. And I think LSD helped me with that. Yeah, occasionally I do get the flashes that Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda talked about of everything, the interconnectedness of everything, the cosmic purpose. And, you know, then you come down, it kind of goes away, but it never quite goes away. Tried psilocybin, mescaline.
Peyote.
Oh yeah, all of those things. Yeah.
So you
I've
think
probably done around 200 trips. There was a time when I was about 3 or 4, it was at least a couple of years when I was tripping every weekend. And some people don't think I ever quite came down.
So are you a more peaceful person because of it?
Peaceful. I'm peaceful if you don't piss me off.
Well, would it have been easier to piss you off if you hadn't done the few hundred trips?
It's an interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I would say no, not really. I mean, I am very much. I think my Buddhist chanting for the last 30 years has helped me control my temper.
What is your Buddhist chant? Which one? What?
I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which means it was created by a Japanese Buddha named Nichiren Shoshu in the 1400s, and it basically is a chapter from the Lotus Sutra, which is far older, something like 2,000 years old. The Lotus Sutra written in India. Lotus Sutra was talking about like the infinite number of worlds, like worlds that were as infinite as the number of sands on the banks of the Ganges, filled with Buddhas who were just as, etc., and just, right, those guys were on some good drugs. They had some good drugs.
Now, what is? Could you say your mantra again or your chant again?
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. The literal translation would be that respect for the law of karma. The underlying theme of all my books, of course, is women's reproductive rights and sexual freedom. Now that, you know, the women, and especially erotic entertainment people, like women in the sex trades, I mean, words like pornography and whore, these words are borrowed from, like, the Christian, actually, a lot of them came right from the Catholic Church and things like that. So we don't really need to use those words. And we certainly don't have to compute erotic entertainment with sin or damnation or the devil or any of that bullshit if we don't want to. And I don't want to. So that is the underlying theme that runs through all the books.
Seems like you don't like politicians either. Politicians are basically crooks, all for sale, and it seems like there haven't been many political heroes in your books yet.
That's actually true. By the way, Bill Clinton was railroaded. If I got to be president, it would be in the minutes. The President's Day, 2:30 afternoon, blowjob by intern. I'd write it right up where everyone could see it. Actually, the older I have gotten, the less good I can find in any of the three major world religions. They all come from this little tiny desert spot on the earth, and they all celebrate a very agrarian God. When a god becomes an agrarian god, when you stop being a hunter-gatherer and start being an agrarian, a settled society, you put up fences. There's no more freedom. And one thing you have to worry about more than anything else is somebody sneaking an odd egg into your nest. You have to control the breeding rights of your women. It's absolutely essential. So you get a religion that says women are essentially owned by the men in their life. Your father takes his daughter's hand and gives the hand to the husband. At no point in her life, after she starts getting pubic hair, is her hand ever her own to wander off with. Maybe touch herself or somebody else naughty. And that's a sin. The whole concept of sin, the whole concept of when you're having sex with someone other than your designated husband, owner, it's a sin. Even I love the strip clubs of Portland, but some of the best ones, they're not names like Aphrodite's Delight or the Church of Venus was owned by a friend of mine in Seattle. But you get it. They're not good pagan names, but there are a lot of names like Casa Diablo, Devil's Point, the Lucky Devil. See, all of these things, sin, the whole concept of sin. If you throw out the Christian religion and the Muslims and the Jews, you throw out the concept of sin, we can't seem to do that in our laws concerning sex. But that's actually the point of view I am writing from. And I hate hypocrites. That's why I have so much trouble with politicians in general. The hypocritical part. And the hypocritical politicians in my second book, they definitely get their comeuppance.
Yeah, they do.
After comparing the differences between Angus and Charles Bukowski, it seems only fair to let Charles have a few words on which they'd both really agree. We are here to unlearn the teachings of the church state and our educational system. We are here to drink beer. We are here to kill war. We are here to laugh at the odds and live our lives so well that death will tremble to take us.